That's good to know.
Yeah, that's the one side.
No, I'm at the arrow next to it.
Yeah, I have to think of which person it was.
Okay.
When I was in his office, I said, "It's such a cool picture." Plus, Rick's dad worked for Bunny Brett, so I have to make money and anything with Bunny Brett, I keep it.
Funny candy. Yeah.
He's cleaning out his office.
So my husband and I haven't been together.
All right, we'll be getting underway in about 2 minutes. Just a reminder, this close, that the live feed to YouTube is probably recording and transmitting. I warned you a minute too late.
Do you have pictures? Just send me a few, I mean, not your whole.
Yeah.
Pardon me.
How you doing? How are you?
Hey, Steve.
I want one. And this is
Man, I
kind
thought
of
for a
one
minute
where
it
you
was
sit
raining
on
and the
top.
sprinkler in the front yard. I thought, oh, the tower didn't rain.
What were you watching that mailbox grow?
I know, I saw it too, and I thought, oh, are we supposed to get rain today? I mean, it looked
No,
like.
not until Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, supposed to rain.
Yeah. Let's do it in New York dance.
Yeah, man.
I just go out and water my tomatoes.
Sounds good to me. Manage expectations.
I water my plants on my shelves and trying to grow grass.
Flexible.
Alright.
First,
Try to like
turn it off.
I'm pretty
And then
frustrated.
it's restarted.
Yeah.
It's just see if there's like a little glitch in there forward.
Whatever you. No, I mean, we just want to get it wrapped up and done. I mean, I get
All right, we'll be getting underway in about 15 seconds. 14, 13. Good evening and welcome to the Defiance City Council meeting for tonight, June 6th, 2023. As usual, we have a local pastor here who's willing to offer up his service by opening us up in prayer. Tonight we have Pastor Tyson Knopfsinger from First Church of God on Carter Road. Thanks for being our guest this evening.
Yeah, thank you. I was just telling Mr. McMaster beforehand, I don't know if any of y'all are associated with the school, but I had a first this last week. My middle-aged daughter, my oldest is 16, middle's 14, and I asked him like normal, hey, you excited for school to end? And for the first time in 16 years, one of them said no. They said they love their school, their teachers, their friends, and they would love to just keep going. So I thought that was super encouraging. You know, it's our first year here, and to get that kind of response was encouraging as parents. So we're doing something right here in Defiance. So let me pray. God, I just thank you for these moments tonight. I thank you for these leaders that you have placed here. Ask that you would grant them wisdom for this evening and beyond. Ask that all of the conversations would just be guided with that wisdom, and that there would just be clear direction and consensus and unity, and that everything would just go really well tonight. We thank you for a great school year. Thank you for the enthusiasm even that I saw from my daughters, and just the great job that our public schools are doing. We're just so appreciative of them, and just pray that they would be able to get recharged and re-energized over the summer. Ask that you would just continue to look over our community. And as we hit June here, I just pray in particular that all of our citizens in our community would feel loved and valued. And it's also on my heart, too, that as a community that we'd find the courage to stand up for children under 18 who can't stand up for themselves, and that we would step in if necessary and protect them from provocative and explicit sexual content and acts such as pornography, sexual abuse, and drag shows. We ask that we just step in and take care of these kids in every way. In Jesus' name, Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
And thank you. This meeting is called to order. Let the record show that all the members of council are present this evening. For the Pledge of Allegiance this evening, we have a guest who will be helping lead the pledge. Would you come up and introduce yourself, please?
Hello, my name is Mason Doda from Troop 75. Would you all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks for being our guest this evening. We were scheduled to have a public hearing this evening up front, but the employee has withdrawn his request for this public hearing, so it won't be held this evening. We do have a special guest this evening. CIC Executive Director Erica Willitzer is here to update on new happenings that's in Defiance. Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. So I just kind of want to give you an update, I can't believe it, we're in June, the first half of the year is gone. And I will tell you that the first half of the year was tremendous. We are right at $100 million in new investment in the city of Defiance. I think that's probably a record. That does not include things that are happening that doesn't go through our office, because there's a lot of times that companies don't want any incentives or anything like that. So a lot of growth is happening. The latest company announced is called TPAM. They're a Japanese company that specializes in auto prototypes. They're locating out next to the buildings by General Motors. And they're supposed to be having a ribbon cutting, I heard today, either sometime late June or in July. So we're very excited about that. Also in that same time frame, we'll be presenting you with a job incentive application, which we hope that you'll support. So that's happening. In addition to that, with the new jobs that have already been created, we are anticipating over 400 other new positions in unannounced projects in the next 3 to 5 years. So this is really exciting, woo, right? But then there comes a realization of, what are we gonna do about housing? And I just wanna kind of plant a seed tonight. We are currently working with a lot of different developers, and they're saying the same thing over and over again. That with a community of this size, that it just doesn't financially model out. Because they can go to a Perrysburg or Fort Wayne and they can get a higher percentage for that house. So what they're asking, they want to come to Defiance because they see the growth, they see the momentum. But they have, repeatedly we've heard, there has to be a partnership with the city in some respect. They're referring to a TIF, tax increment financing. So I just wanted to plant that seed, but I want to tell you what we're doing in our office to assist in seeing if that is going to be beneficial and making sure that the risk is not so much of a risk. So I'm working with Maumee Valley Planning, and we're basically doing an impact study on what that TIF actually looks like as far as cost, what the return on investment would be. In addition to that, we're going to do an impact study from an economic standpoint. So if 300 new people come and live in the city of Defiance, what's the return in 5, 10 years when it comes to taxes? How does it increase your tax base? And then what does it look like if you don't do the TIF? So we're in the process of doing a lot of research in conjunction, obviously, with the City of Defiance, Maumee Valley Planning. So hopefully when we get all that done, we'll be presenting that to you, of course, with the blessing of Board of Control, making sure, we're not gonna present it unless we think it's good. It might come back and the numbers just don't equal out. We're not gonna do something that's gonna be risky, but it is a need that we have with all the new growth that we're experiencing.
Are you also going to include viable locations around the community?
Yeah.
That way we have an idea of where the potential growth might be. I know Mayor McCann has basically stated some of the areas that have been out there, but I think we also just need to have part of that profile.
Yes, And I will tell you that another thing that we're looking at is even like outside of the borders. You know, townships don't necessarily want to do annexations. So we're looking at a tool that's called a joint economic development district. And it's where both the city and the townships benefit from the taxes. So we're looking at that, and we're looking at different areas. But to your point, we can definitely bring that to the table once we bring all the other stats.
Great.
Any other questions regarding that? Okay. So with that, I wanted to also mention just some different things that we've been working on. Summer camps for manufacturing are coming up the week of June 20th and then also June 26th. General Motors is the main sponsor of that, the only sponsor of that. And so it does have an engineering focus. So we're very excited. We'll be taking the kids through General Motors along with some other companies that have a high engineering need. And just, you know, sometimes you can't quantify the impact of these things. My daughter is now going to grad school at the University of Cincinnati for a biomedical engineering degree. I just on a whim, it was like her junior year in college, I said, so how did you pick that degree? And she goes, when I was like in 8th grade, we did this like camp that we went through General Motors in Defiance. And it was they taught all the different avenues for engineering for girls. And I didn't really want to do the things for auto because it just didn't pique my interest, but they did all the different aspects. And I thought that is something that I wanted to do. So I'm sure there are so many stories about that, just like hers. So it does have an impact. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. In addition to that, a lot of our local schools, before school let out, there were some amazing things that are happening. For example, Ayersville did something that's called the Amazing Shake. Are you guys all familiar with that? Okay, so it's where they do interviewing skills and they make it a competition. I thought this was super cool. So the two winners, they had a first place, second place. They got to go to McDonald's headquarters in Chicago, get interviewed by the top executives there. Then they took them to Chicago Cubs headquarters. They got interviewed and got to a grand tour there. So the winners, first place was Jackson Stambaugh, and second place was Tucker Sproul. And then while there, Hannah and Paige from our office, they assisted in the different programming there, but then they also taught the kids about in-demand jobs in Defiance County, which I thought was really neat. So speaking of demand for workforce recruitment, I wanted to tell you has eased a little bit. Our office at the beginning of this year was flooded with people like, hey, can you help us with your recruitment? Hey, can you help us? That we're still getting calls, but it's not like it was at the beginning of the year. We're doing follow-ups with the companies that we assisted, and they're all saying, look, we're fully staffed. We're doing okay right now. So I finally feel like that's a far cry from where we were 3 years ago when we were having people saying, we need 50 people, we need 100 people. And it felt like we just didn't even know how to start to help them. So that was good. And a lot of other different things that I'm sure you guys are aware. The 4 flags, we're working on getting the engineering design completely finalized. That should happen this month. Our homegrown program, which is a grant that goes to small businesses, $500. It doesn't sound like much, but it can actually have a big impact. Premier Bank has sponsored that. We are taking applications now until like June 13th is this next round, and we'll award those at the end of this month. So if you know a business that has a need, so it can range from whatever, like marketing needs. We've had a couple that have reached out. They want to make some improvements on their awnings. It could be a variety of things. And it's a very easy application that we can get funded by the end of this month. They just have to do the 1-page application that's on our website. So we have a lot of things going on, a lot of positivity. And any questions from you guys? Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Do we have any liaison meeting requests or reports? And what comments do we have from council this evening? Mr. Waxler.
Yeah, I've had several people questioning why this fountain at Pontiac Park isn't on.
The Zana Fountain? I just heard Mr. Sargin tell somebody the other day that he was gonna be starting to work on the Zana Fountain.
Okay, cause I've been told when it was private, it was always running, since the city took part of it, it's never running, so
Okay.
I just wanted to let you know they're wondering why it isn't on.
Okay.
I told them most times full of different colored water or suds anyway.
There's a chance he might have been waiting until after the Cottonwood, Mr. Waxler.
Yeah.
And it was bad last week, but it seems to have subsided some.
Okay.
Do we have any other comments from council? Okay, Mayor McCann.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple things to update you on since Mr. Mack is not here this evening. I had some communication with Michelle out at Whirler, and she's always very good. And while we were communicating on another matter, I said, hey, where are we at on the recycling? You know, we approved that several weeks ago. And she actually said that letters are starting to go out now with the utility bills. And the letter looks like this. Dear Defiance resident, we're pleased to announce the City of Defiance will be offering automated recycling. At this time, we need to know if you would like to opt into this service. Service will include a 65-gallon recycling Mighty Tidy with a yellow lid. It says if you do not want to opt in for the recycling Mighty Tidy, then you don't do anything. But once you get this letter, then it instructs you to do one of two things. Either call a phone number that'll be on the letter and leave a voicemail with your name, address, and phone number stating that you do want to be part of that recycling program. Or on your browser, you can go to carts.whirler.com and fill out the form with all your information, and they will take things from there. So those will be the instructions that people should be getting those letters with their next utility bill. Somebody like me that doesn't get a utility bill is going to, I get one. I get one, it's just electronically, and obviously a lot of the inserts don't come along with that. So,
Yeah, me too.
I will, I'll have to go online and do that myself. So, tentatively plan to deliver the new recycling Mighty Tidies late summer, early fall. Once the Mighty Tidies are implemented, the current green recycling bins will be removed and recycled. And once we get the big Mighty Tidies out, the small green ones won't be an option. So if you want to recycle, you've got to get the larger rollout Mighty Tidy. Questions on that, Mrs.
If
Crutch?
you already have a large rollout Mighty Tidy for recycling, will we keep that one or will we get a new one with the yellow lid?
You'll get a new one with the yellow lid, and you, since you paid for that service, will also get a credit. It won't be a lot because you don't pay a lot to begin with, but it will be something.
Also along with that, for the green recycling bins, we'll be returning them curbside?
Correct.
Or, okay.
Yeah, you put them by the curb, they'll gather them up, and Whirler plans to recycle those, but they would like them back.
Hopefully they don't want my lid.
Yeah, mine either. They got mine a long time ago, it was smashed. Couple other things, if you're curious, last couple days we've been digging across Elliott Road out across from Decked. That's just a new water line going back to the decked building that's behind the existing decked building. West High construction this week is going well. Most of you know West High Street has been closed at the railroad crossing and also the Day Road Bridge. And Day Road Bridge we thought might be done today, but it's not quite done. But those should be open tomorrow. But then the repaving of West High is gonna start right in. So I strongly encourage people just to avoid the area until the weekend. And that'll be done. Bid packets will be going out soon for the Derbyshire project. Ginner Road, they're starting to get the biddings around for that and set up. Those will be going out soon. Sidewalk inspections are about complete on the Wayne Avenue corridor. But I should mention, and you may want to jump in here, Mr. O'Donnell, if you know a little bit more. Apparently we found a discrepancy between our code and the ADA.
That's correct.
Okay, so our code, I'm guessing, is not as restrictive.
Yes.
So stay tuned on that. I don't know any more details than that. Melinda just sort of mentioned it in passing. Nikki Warnicki continues to work on a grant for additional charging stations for EVs here in Defiance. And the Kingsbury Playground should be complete and up and running in about a week or so. That's what I have.
That's a lot of news.
It's a lot of news.
It's a lot of progress.
Me and Erica, the Crescent will be full on Thursday.
Well, thank you. Mr. O'Donnell.
Mr. President, this is somewhat irregular, but I would like a week early to request an executive session for the end of next week, tail end of next week, to consider the compensation of a public employee or official, Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G1.
We have a request for executive session.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Mr. Hancock.
Mr. Engel,
Yes.
Mr. Corbett,
Yes.
Mr. Hancock.
Yes.
Mr. Rusty,
Yes.
Mr. Mast,
Yes.
Mr. Wexler,
Yes.
and Mrs. Crouch.
Yes.
So after legislation next week, we will have the executive session.
Thank you, that's all I have.
That's all you have? Ms. Sprague.
I have 3 purchase orders. Purchase order 2023-01082 for sidewalk improvements, $37,423.50. Purchase order 2023-01122 to the Huntington Bank for the trackless sidewalk tractor, $45,183. And I did look that up. That was a purchase made in 5-year purchase made in 20. So it's getting there. It's almost done. So it's good. And the last one's purchase order 2023-01094, water line replacement parts, $37,226.34. Recently, I've had some talks with Lori on the income tax delinquencies. In the past, when credit adjustments was up and running, they were, collecting on those as well as the utility side. They are no longer. So, and now since COVID, we did a first round mailing on the income tax delinquency side about a week ago. Towards the end of the month, we're going to do a second round and see what that gets us. We've got some traffic back with updated addresses, so that will be extremely helpful. On the utility side, that's a little more complicated because those people would not be living in those residences because they would have been disconnected. That's going to take a little more research on what we need to do there, but it's a significant amount of money that we need to try to collect on to the best of our ability. Yes.
Have you looked into another firm?
Yes.
Any progress?
I'm checking. I have some experience with that when I worked for the bank, and the fee process can be kind of, you gotta be careful there. So I want to see how much maybe her and I can handle collecting on, because then you can collect 100% versus paying somebody else to do it. But we're on the utility side, that's going to take some homework and research, and I'll keep you updated what we come up with that. But
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. We do have 3 items of legislation for consideration this evening. Would you read the caption for the first, Lisa?
Second reading as amended, by caption only, an ordinance creating the position of auto visual technician as amended.
Ms. Sprague.
Yes, as you recall, there was a typo in the rate, and we corrected that. It's 140.
Do we have any questions in these regards? Mr. Waxler.
No further question, move suspended call.
Second, Mr. Corbett.
Mr. Corbett,
Yes.
Mr. Hancock.
Yes.
Mr. Rusty,
Yes.
Mr. Mast,
Yes.
Mr. Wexler,
Yes.
Mrs. Crouch,
Yes.
and Mr. Engel.
Yes.
Mr. Engel.
Motion down.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Second, Mr. Mast.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
Mr. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch?
Yes.
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
And Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
With that, this ordinance is adopted.
First reading by caption only, an ordinance authorizing acquisition of real property on Perry Street.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. President. As council might recall, there's been some discussion on what the city's intentions were for the property next door at 621 Perry Street. In fact, we've had quite a bit of discussion on that. What we propose to do with this legislation is to enter into a sort of three-party transaction between the owner, Mr. Mass or Mr. Mass Company, the Defiance County Land Reutilization Corporation or the Land Bank, and the city itself. And part of the reason we want to do that, really two reasons. Number one, if the land bank is able to acquire it first, they have a lot more liability immunities from both civil suits and as well as regulators and OEPA while they hold the property and while any additional environmental testing is done for any environmental issues. We don't know that there are any, but in case there are, they offer that liability shield. The other reason is the state of Ohio is making grants available for these land reutilization corporations statewide. And so the land bank would have access to some of those grants that we may not have if we just purchase the property directly. So what this legislation proposes is that the land bank purchase the property from Mr. Mast, and then the current property owner, and then the land bank will hold the property until everything's abated, and then once that happens, the city will make the land bank whole, not just for the $30,000 purchase price, but also any closing costs, title search fees, owner's title insurance policies, that sort of thing, and we will make the land bank whole.
Okay. Mr. Waxler?
So who's gonna be responsible for the cleanup then?
Oh, right, I mean, the way this foresees it would be the Land Reutilization Corporation with the city's partnership, cooperation.
Because that's been a body shop, auto shop for its whole life. I guarantee, that ground's probably contaminated, I would guess. I don't know, but.
I just handed Mrs. Wiltzer the state budget has been through the House, it's now in the Senate, and both houses provide for $500 million worth of funding for brownfield remediation. So I'm reasonably confident that we'll get a chunk of that. Last time through, the land bank got $500,000, and that's what they've used for many of these demolitions around the county. It's been very well received. So I'm reasonably confident that some money will be made available.
I know it gets really expensive, so.
It does get expensive.
Okay.
Yep. Again, if you made this point, I'm sorry, Mr. O'Donnell, we would not take ownership until it's got a clean bill of health.
Do we have any other further questions for Mr. O'Donnell? Mr. Mast?
No further questions. Motion to suspend and call.
Motion to suspend and call?
Second.
Second, Mr. Engel?
Mr. Rusty,
Yes.
Mr. Mass,
Yes.
Mr. Waxler,
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch,
Yes.
Mr. Engel,
Yes.
Mr. Corbett,
Yes.
and Mr. Hancock.
Yes.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt, Mr. Corbett?
Second.
Second, Mr. Hancock?
Mr. Mass,
Yes.
Mr. Waxler,
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch,
Yes.
Mr. Engel,
Yes.
Mr. Corbett,
Yes.
Mr. Hancock.
Yes.
And Mr. Rusty.
Yes.
With that, this ordinance is also adopted.
First reading by caption only, an ordinance creating the temporary position of municipal prosecutor in the Department of Law.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Mr. President, it probably doesn't bear repeating, but Defiance is a smaller county, and our municipal court has countywide jurisdiction. However, we are a one-judge court, and obviously that means one judge hears all of the cases. Judge Roars, after 30-plus years of service, has decided to step down after this year. So far, and really by default, the Assistant Law Director, Troy Essex, is the only person running for that seat. And since he is our Assistant Law Director who handles all of those municipal and countywide misdemeanor prosecutions, he will likely be assuming the bench come January 1. What that means is we do not want to put him in the position of prosecuting cases in late December, that he will then assume the bench in early January. So what this legislation proposes is not unlike what happened when my predecessor announced his retirement, creates a temporary municipal prosecutor position to assume new cases September 1 through December 31, with the intent being, it's not in this legislation, but the intent would be if things all goes well with this new hire, that person would then assume the role as assistant law director, and we go back down to a more manageable 2 attorneys. The other reason that we would do that, I promise you there's more than enough casework for 2 attorneys over there. But it would also, it would give me a feel for how that attorney manages his or her new caseload. But it would also get that attorney up to speed so he or she's ready to hit the ground running come January 1. And we don't have to scramble like some neighboring jurisdictions have recently.
Mr. Resty.
No questions, motion to suspend and call?
I just have one question.
Question, Mr. Waxler?
What would happen if somebody would run against him, a Democrat, or because he's on a Republican on our thing, right?
Yeah, so
What would happen if somebody would run against him and he would lose, then what we do with this person?
the partisan, the time to file for party, be on the partisan ballot has already passed.
Okay,
And also the write-in has passed.
okay. So we have to worry about that then.
Yeah.
Good question.
Second.
So we have a motion to suspend and call. We have a second.
Mr. Waxler,
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch.
Yes.
Mr. Engel,
Yes.
Mr. Corbett.
Yes.
Mr. Hancock,
Yes.
Mr. Rusty,
Yes.
and Mr. Mass.
Yes. Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt, Mr. Engel.
Second.
Second, Mrs. Crutch.
Mrs. Crutch,
Yes.
Mr. Engel,
Yes.
Mr. Corbett,
Yes.
Mr. Hancock.
Yes.
Mr. Rusty.
Yes.
Mr. Mass. And Mr. Wexler.
Yes.
With that, this ordinance is adopted. This evening, we also have a study session in regards to the regulation on motorized and electric scooters before we adjourn for this evening. Mr. O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I would note I have Police Chief Todd Schaefer here to help me. We did a sort of deep dive into the code book, and we found that council has indeed adopted what the state of Ohio has in the revised code in terms of these types of electric scooters, electric bicycles. The only difference, than what we might conceive of regulations for them is the state has a lot more classifications than just electric scooters and electric bicycles. There are electric personal assistive mobility devices, low-speed micromobility devices, motorized bicycles, and then 3 classes of electric bicycles based on horsepower and the top speeds. The other thing I would note is this code and the Ohio Revised Code, it's very permissive of these types of vehicles. For the most part, not all of them, but for the most part, everything but electric bicycles are permitted on sidewalks, so your scooters, personal delivery devices, micro mobility devices. But anything but mopeds and electric bicycles are permitted on sidewalks. The difference is like a moped is going to be on a street or a highway or a parking lot that's private property. And electric bicycles, they're only for paths dedicated for bicycles or shared use paths, not sidewalks, for class 1 and 2. And then for class 3 is a path, they're prohibited on paths set aside for exclusive use of bicycles or shared use path, unless you, as a legislative authority, enact legislation to permit them. They have to be on the street. If any of these vehicles may operate on the street, the only thing is if they're operating on the street, then they're subject to all of the laws of the traffic code, lights, 4-way stops, etc. Other than that, the code lays it out, but you all are allowed to make changes to make them more restrictive if you so choose. I don't know, Chief, did you have anything?
No, in fact, you pretty much addressed it, that they are illegal, any of the electric bicycles are illegal to be on any of the sidewalks. That was the main concern. What we will do is, as the police department already put this order out a couple weeks ago, is to start enforcing the traffic code with the electric bicycles. One of the main instances we've been having is watching the electric bicycles go onto sidewalks back into the roadway and causing a traffic hazard that way. Like Law Director O'Donnell said, they have to meet every part of the traffic code, being headlights, tail lights, and obey every traffic law.
Do they have to have a license then? I mean, as far as like the go-karts or?
They do not have to have a license plate or anything else through the BMV. What they do have to be is certain classifications of whether they're listed. You have to be a licensed driver to have them. Okay, and that's where Law Director O'Donnell said there's that class 1, class 2, class 3, which gets really, really confusing as far as how that goes.
There are certain streets they can ride on or not ride on?
They're allowed to go on any public highway.
Other than, it has to be less than 55 miles per hour.
Correct.
Less than 55 they
Yeah,
can go on it?
yeah, you can't go on 24 or anything like that.
Okay.
Mr. Mast?
Is there any age restriction on operating the electric bicycle?
I think the class 3 had 16 under unless they had a learner's permit.
Class 3 and the mopeds.
Yeah.
And the moped, yeah.
I was saying, but now moped, does that have to have, back years ago, my sister had one, she had to have a.
Mopeds
license
have to
and-
have a moped license and they have to be registered like that.
But they
That
have
really
to
wasn't our
plate 'em.
concern because we see nobody driving the mopeds on the sidewalks. So it's just this major uptick.
Right.
And rightfully so, that we're in an economic downturn, so you're gonna see alternative modes of transportation. And that's a more affordable way for people to get around. So I do envision that we're gonna see a lot more of these in the near future, especially with summer coming up and more opportune time to ride them without inclement weather. So now's the time to really start paying attention to that. You know, we'll start education campaigns through, our website and get those laws out there. I think one of the things that we're just trying to avoid a little bit is the confusion on the types of classifications and what's allowed and what's not allowed and how they're supposed to be on there.
And how do you tell, how many horsepower can they?
Good question, because
From being, as you're patrolling, how can you tell that
you can't right now. When those were written, they were actually
pink
talking about
bikes
more
or-
like the motors on the bicycles. You could actually, when the motorized bicycles first came out, it was actually a motor on the bicycle. With the electric bicycle, you can't tell really what it is. All you see is that battery pack, and you know it's an electric powered bicycle, which still classifies in the motorized bicycle category. The main thing is, how fast are they going? How fast can they go? A lot of those can go 25 plus with no problem at all.
Yeah, and the electric, they're actually moving to regulating them by wattage, by watts. And so that's something that I think you will see, even maybe as soon as the next round of traffic code provisions that we put in front of you this fall. You'll see some further regulation. But just reading this, I can tell this is already more complicated, believe it or not, than the golf cart legislation that we passed a year or so ago.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that, but is it feasible, since obviously we can tweak the Ohio Revised Code if we make all classes equal? That way we don't have to, I could see how difficult it'd be even with the wattage, unless you're pretty mechanically inclined, whether you know what it is or not, that would take that part out of the equation.
It would definitely simplify enforcement by my officers when you go to try to enforce that.
I mean, they are kind of equal in that I don't know that we have many paths that are bicycle only.
Right now,
That
no.
the class 3 would be allowed, but not, that only class 3 would be allowed. It's just that the question if you would want to allow class 3 on shared use paths or not to make them equal to class 1 and 2.
Okay, people are gonna get confused about shared use paths, because some people think a sidewalk is a shared use path, and it's not. I know it's not, but that's the confusion you're gonna get into with the public. So whatever we do, we need to satisfy our safety people and our constituents, so everybody has to understand what the game and the rules are, so.
And part of that education process, and I'm sure Mr. Corbett won't be any issue with me contacting Mr. Hellberg, and whether it be one article or a series of articles in the newspaper, that we can help push out the education through both electronically through our website, but also through the Crescent, through education that way.
Mr. Waxler?
The biggest thing I had when I originally brought this up was what people were really upset is they're going down the road, a light will change or something where they come to a stop. Then they decide to go on the sidewalk and cross the other way and go back out. That's what everybody was complaining about.
And no, they have to be operated on the
I don't
roadway.
care what their voltage or speed is at that point, it's just unsafe, and that's where your guys can.
Yep. And what you're seeing is, you're seeing all kinds of electric bicycles operate on the sidewalks, which is just flat out wrong.
But they're doing whatever they wanna do just to avoid stop signs or turns, you know.
Correct. If you're on an electric bicycle and you're on a sidewalk, doesn't matter what the wattage is, you're wrong.
Right.
If you're on another type of electric, motorized scooter or electric scooter, and you're on a sidewalk and people are diving out of the way, well, you have a duty to avoid the pedestrians, so you're wrong there as well. Correct.
Mr. Hancock?
Yeah, and I'm also seeing go-karts. I've seen go-karts in the streets. I've also seen it was a 6-wheel apparatus going through the cemetery. I don't know what they're called. They're not called a gator. It's not called a mule. It has some amphibious assault maybe vehicle. But you could tell they were ignoring the traffic because they went to the backside of there by Eric's and then went on the sidewalk, went in front of the chapel. I mean, it was obvious what was occurring, but you know, it's sad to see that. You know, we just need to get a generalization so that we educate our community so that everybody understands. Hey, I don't want that, you know, there's golf carts coming down South Jackson, you know, there's 2 people in there shirtless and I'm returning in my big yellow Hummer and guess what, they could fit right under there real quick. Just come out of nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's, you know, if they'd like to ride the go-kart, they're welcome to out in the rural area.
And part of that education process is warnings and citations also. So should that be needed, that will be occurring.
Mr. Mast?
Just 2 quick things. I think, other than maybe a change in simplifying the classifications, it seems to me that our revised code provides us what we need to avoid the sidewalk issues.
Correct.
We can just keep them on the road.
Correct.
And make them obey rules that many of the drivers don't bother obeying too. But then the other thing, is there any ordinance governing the other types of motorized devices that people are speeding around on the sidewalks? You see some of these boards with one wheel and
One wheels, that's what they're called.
and the hoverboards and I mean the handled scooters.
Yeah, and there are these electric personal assistive mobility devices, low-speed micro-mobility devices. And again, that's when we start getting into how much power the vehicle has.
I wondered if that was a catch-all for some of that stuff. I was trying to read what the low-speed micro-mobility devices are, but it got pretty muddied where some of them were remote controlled even, and it was...
You get into those delivery vehicles that are remotely controlled by Amazon or whatever AI robot is there, that has to be operated by a person at some point. So yeah, I suspect this body of law and these statutes will change, and council will have to decide: do we go with the changes, or do we want to craft our own? Like Mr. Corbett was suggesting, just for the sake of simplicity.
Seems to me that that's all we need really, is to simplify it and then just enforce the rules of traffic.
They're probably coming, but Eric and I were at Bowling Green a year or so ago while class was still in session, and they little things.
Delivery things.
Yeah, running all over the place.
Like they're gonna run over you. No,
And,
they're supposed to stop first.
But the funny part about it was, Eric will remember this, there were 2 of them that met on the sidewalk. So now they both want to go in opposite directions, and they're sitting there going like this, and it was pretty comical at the time.
That kid wasn't getting his pizza.
Right, right, and that's what they do at Bowling Green, they deliver food and stuff.
Mr. Engel?
If they are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, are they going to get a warning first? Or are they going to?
Well, typically, that's one of the benefits of warnings is we document the warnings, and through looking through our records management system, how many times they've been warned. So yes, if you've been warned them once, then you can elevate enforcement action as we go there, yeah.
Mrs. Crutch?
Will they be wearing helmets?
Certain of them are required, certain of them are not required. And that's one of those things where it comes in, being able to identify, if you can identify, what type of vehicle it is and what the requirements are for safety equipment, personal safety equipment.
I thought when the clerk was scrolling through there, I saw highlighted in yellow that under 18, you had to have some sort of
For the class 3, yeah.
for class 3 chief.
And also for the electric personal assisted mobility devices, also under 18. I mean, age comes in too.
Age comes into a factor. Do you think it would be advantageous for us to have them have license so that you would know where most of these people are having the electric bicycles? I mean, because we have them for the golf carts. We wanted it for safety purposes. We're gonna let these people drive on roads that are 45, 50 miles per hour. You know, I don't wanna drive up behind one of those and, I mean, it's a little scary when we're thinking of safety purposes. I mean, I think back in the olden days, even our bicycles, we had licenses on them. We would go to the police department.
The licenses for that is just to register it with us, knowing that we can find it if it's
okay,
lost.
okay.
That has nothing to do with actually licensing them as far as are you a fit driver or not.
Okay,
Yeah, when it comes to the bike licenses, that's basically a number that's recorded, so with the many bikes we find every year, we can return them instead of having to sell them at city auction. That's how that serves its purpose.
okay. I'm worried about the safety factor of this, and I've already seen them up and down Wayne Avenue.
Yep, 100%.
Fast.
Yep. And that's the issue, I mean, when you're using a pedal powered bicycle, you can get ones that can go pretty fast.
Yes.
Obviously going down North Clinton Hill, you're gonna get them.
Yeah.
The detriment to these they're pretty fast from the start. And yes, they are becoming, like I said, that more prevalent, and with that, they are gonna be becoming more of an issue for pedestrians and other vehicles on the roadway.
Mr. Engel?
Yes, I agree with Mrs. Hudson.
What's my name?
As far as the safety, also I see a lot of them out at Deal Park. They just run it all over out of there. Luckily, there's not a lot of cars out there at the time, but they are out there running around. So I think safety's a big thing on this.
And like I said, as soon as, when you see gas prices start going up in the economy, if it gets worse, you're gonna start seeing more of them on the roadway because it's a more economical way to travel.
Any other questions for Chief Schaefer?
One other thing that that the code allows us to do, allows the court to do, is if you have repeat offenders, is impound the electric vehicle. I don't know if that entirely answers your question about what a registration would be helpful, Ms. Crutch, but it's very permissive for the court to do that.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Is there anything further, Mr. O'Donnell?
I have nothing further.
Excellent. Okay. Usually at this time, after legislation, and before we adjourn, we have a time for citizens' concerns. Do we have any questions for council? When I call on you, just come on up and give your name and your address. You can come on up.
Surely, thank you.
Good evening. John Druska, 1133 Wilhelm Street. I grew up in Defiance about 30 years ago, and I'm eyeing a return. I'm in town visiting, and I'm impressed, to say the least, by the changes I'm seeing. Some are a little sad. There's no more mags. There's no more mini golf over at Jig's Root Beer. But some are positively exciting. See, I remember the old GM plant out by the Kroger or the Johns Manville right here in downtown. And as I was driving in last night, I saw the decked factory off of 24. And it reinforced an idea to me that good old-fashioned American muscle and sweat is still at a premium here in Defiance. Now, ever since I moved away, I felt heartstrings pulling me back here to my first hometown. And now I know why. I want the world to know Defiance the way I know and remember Defiance. So I'm here before you today to introduce discussions on the next great endeavor for Defiance, Ohio, your next NFL franchise, the Defiance Builders, named for the power and ingenuity that keeps Defiance running. With a bold color scheme invoking local nature and the blue collars of Defiance, which have built this country for decades. An iconic, aggressive logo, reminiscent of the wartime sacrifice of Rosie the Riveter, but with a 21st century upgrade, and a brand new state-of-the-art stadium nicknamed The Fort, obviously a nod to Defiance's rich American history. And every time the Builders score a touchdown, we're going to blow off replica cannons like they have over on the library campus. Just imagine with me. 4th down on the 23-yard line, 7 seconds left, no timeouts, Fields in shotgun, takes the snap, fades back, blitz coming, pressure left side, he goes to the sideline, scrambles, goes up a prayer, opposite corner, touchdown! Kelsey, one hand, both feet, 6 on the board for the Builders, sound the cannonade, goodness gravy, smell the baby! There you have it. Thank you. You've already got your play-by-play man right in front of you, the first team employee.
Did you bring financing for this stadium, the Fort?
Well, I may have something for you there, if I may continue. Thank you, sir, Mr. Corbett. Now, look, you're probably saying, sir, this is a small city, possibly even a large town. How can we possibly support such an audacious suggestion? And look, as a former Defiance striker, I'd like to tell you that this is a football town, and maybe it is, but we all know it's a football town. I have memories of cowbells clattering across the fields on Saturday afternoons at Defiance College games where my father used to teach, or the high drama of Friday Night Lights out on Palmer Drive. And look no further than Green Bay, a small industrial Midwestern town with a national fan following. This is Ohio, people. The greats of the game are enshrined here, immortalized. Meanwhile, the Bengals are one stiff breeze away from getting blown into Kentucky, and the Browns? I don't think I need a joke for the Browns. Trust me, Defiance is ready for this. Now, I could bore you with all sorts of research about the economic impact of merely constructing the stadium, or we could talk about expansion versus relocation. I mean, you know, the Lions are just sitting there doing nothing. Or how we're even going to get Travis Kelce and Justin Fields onto the same team, or who's going to build the Fort. And I think maybe it should be decked because they've already built 2 huge monuments out there. They're probably clamoring to throw up a third. Why not? Let's reach out, huh? But rather than get into all those details, wouldn't you rather close your eyes, feel that cold winter air against your skin, see the neon green of the turf, the black and blue as the bruisers take the gridiron, and live out one more audacious February memory with me that could only be written in Defiance. Overtime here, next score wins, 1st and goal from the 3. Fields under center, takes a snap, hands off Lynch, he dives over, spins, he scores! The unretired Marshawn Lynch puts 6 on the board, and the Defiance Builders have won Super Bowl 62! Goodness gravy, smell the baby! It's your move, Defiance. Let's bring the Builders home. And by the way, I have t-shirts out back for $35 or 2 for $65. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any, Mr. Doda, do you have a good question for us?
Sure. Hello, I am Mason Doda, 1787 Sherwood Drive. So in the community and the city, what different positions are opening up for Boy Scouts like me to kind of participate in? For example, the boat races this weekend, the Boy Scouts are going down for fundraising for activities we're gonna be doing.
And are you asking about, say, like volunteer position to help out, or hiring positions for the summer, or?
Both.
Oh.
Both work.
Both are good opportunities.
I'm gonna guess maybe you're not quite old enough yet to be employed by the city of Defiance.
Not yet.
But as far as the volunteer side of things, and first of all, thank you for volunteering to help with the boat races. It should be a nice event on Saturday. I'm a little concerned about Sunday's weather. I would recommend that you stop down at the Visitors Bureau and see Mrs. Mack. She, I think, is out this week. So I'd ask maybe that you wait till next week. But she's very kind, very nice, but there's events coming to us. For example, the Rib Fest. There's a lot of other products or things that are gonna be on, especially this year because it's our bicentennial year. So I would encourage you to go down to see her. If you're not satisfied with that, let me give you my card and give me a call or stop in and see me. But I'd suggest you call first to make sure I'm here. And thank you for doing that. Thank you.
Right, and do you know where the Visitors Bureau is?
Bring your friends.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
You see, now that's a good question.
Very good.
All right, thank you.
So you get an A.
Thank you for raising such a nice young man, Mr. Doda.
Yes.
Sure, if you have a question or comment, please come on up. Just remember, state your name and address.
Christopher J. Gerdeman, 302 East 2nd Street. I'd just like to say I've lived my whole life in Defiance. I'm 59, almost 60 years old. This past weekend was amazing. The Relay for Life in Defiance. I'm a survivor. My dad carried the torch, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. I have my electric bike parked out front. I've talked to Chief Schaefer, and I'm really concerned. I'm concerned about people not being educated. Okay, Ms. Crutch, I respect what you're saying, but there's laws already set in place, and it's not wattage, it's voltage, people. Mine's a 36-volt hyper. I got it in February. I didn't know the laws, but working with the law department, or I should say police department, sheriff department, got it in February. Okay, I had a wreck. I wasn't right, I was riding at night, and it was in February. I've had this bike 4 months. We've done everything to try to fix it. The company donated the parts, so to speak, because they're a good company. It's called Hyper Bicycles, and all you guys have to do, with due respect, is Google it. All your information's there. What law director said is exactly right. It's already, and I want to see a copy of that, but I've already seen a copy. I want to have it in my hand, okay? Now, Friday I go downtown, and I got my electric bike, which is, the motor is not hooked up. It's still waiting to be hooked up. But I'm walking next to my bicycle. And the state bank, they had a great, this is the start of my day. Relay for Life, I'm looking forward to everything, getting sponsors, which Chief Supermarket donated stuff. Everybody's donating. I got my own team. Well, State Bank, they're out front, hot dogs, beverages, chips, water. They said, would you like one? I said, well, sure. I'll take one down to Tim. Tim's, everybody knows Tim's the best bicycle man in the world, and he's running his business downtown. And so me and Tim been hanging around. He's been showing me how to repair my bike, even though I knew a little bit. These electric bikes are advanced. Mine's a 36 volt, which, like he said, there's different classes. It's already law. We, as council, we can't change law, but we can educate. We can tell people, hey, this is what's up. Okay, so what happened was I'm sitting there and I'm talking to the kids and stuff, and we're having a good time. This guy comes by an electric scooter. I said, whoa, and he's got his girl in front. I've never seen this before. I I said, sir, I said, with all due respect, could you go slow? And he said, I was only doing 10 mile an hour. How he knows he's doing 10 mile an hour, I don't know. There wasn't no radar gun. Was anybody radar? No, I don't think so. So I said, you know, there's kids around. It was a special day. They were doing a scavenger hunt. Everybody knows about that, right? I didn't know about it, but I was visiting the visitor bureau and talking to Miss Mack and all them in there, getting ready for the Relay for Life. And the gentleman said, mine goes 60 mile an hour. I said, I don't care. I said, I'm concerned about these kids. Don't you see? And he's got a little girl with him. And she was a cutie. And I said, you're out here having a good time. Everybody's having a good time. And then he took off, and I never saw the guy again, not yet. But he said that what he had does 60 mile an hour and costs $3,000. I said, well, how do I get one? And he said, well, you can get it for about $2,000 now. Last year's model. I said, okay, that's something I could ride on the highway. Now, the 50 mile an hour, that's all law too. If you're going on Baltimore Road, past or heading towards our family farm, my auto J. Gurdon was my father's, so I know 24 West. Okay, there's the Axel Bar, great bar, but it's entertainment. You know, it's not about going out there and drinking. I can ride my electric bike, I can pedal. I've been pedaling around town. I keep up with traffic. I stay in the electric bike. All the ride within 3 feet is all documented now. These actual electric bikes.
And I hate to interrupt you, but you've got about a minute left.
Okay, hey, I got my electric bike out front. If anybody wants to see it, you know where I am. They got my phone number. I'm working with you guys for safety. Now, I found a license plate today, turned it in, because I'm around looking at the streets and stuff, picking up stuff, metal. So, with all due respect, I appreciate you. And football, yeah, it's possible I've talked to them. Baseball, 24 years.
Yeah.
Best coach in the world. Yeah. So I'm having a shout out to Coach L. You'll see him around. He's gonna be around the ball fields. You know, that's my sport. He said football, yeah. I breathe baseball. And I've been umpiring, and we lost. I was too busy at the Relay for Life selling donating cheese cookies. They were flying out there. I'm the only one that had them. And I probably went through 18 dozen. Cheese donated some. And I was running back and forth on my electric bike, pedaling. It's my exercise. We're bikers. Tim has a car and a bike. I have a car and a bike. But we choose the bike. Thank you very much.
And
Tim just went on a 50-mile ride. And I met some the other day that went on 150. And I'm training for something special with experienced church that they got going on. So thank you for your time. I know everybody's busy. And if you want to take a look, I'm going to be out here for another 20 minutes. But you're going into executive session, right?
Not tonight. That would be
tonight.
next
Well,
week.
all right. Welcome.
Thank you for being our guest. If there's no other citizens' concerns, do we have a motion to adjourn for this evening?
I do have a citizen's concern.
Oh, please do.
I had an email. Someone was concerned about the sidewalks on East High Street where they have the, the grass that they grew for the water retention, whatever. Who is supposed to be taking care of that part of it's on this side of the sidewalk. You know what I'm talking about? On East High Street, the brand new sidewalk, and then they put in like the plants and stuff for the water
Bioretention areas.
Yes. Who is supposed to be because there's trees growing out of some of those parts.
The hope was the residents would assist us in maintaining them, but that was pretty false hope, Mrs. Crutch.
Okay. Yeah, it was people on the other side of the streets that
I have to admit, I kind of rolled my eyes when somebody said, well, we're hoping the residents would take care of them.
Okay.
In the past, I can't tell you whether or not it's the case this year. In the past, we've contracted with a private group to maintain those for us.
Well, I know that we did the hill. I know that we took care of that hill part, but I thought that the residents were supposed to, but maybe I'll just kind of tell people on the other side of the street. Go over. I could pull that tree out.
There we go. You get young Mr. Doda out there.
Yeah, there's volunteer.
Yes,
There
I was
you
gonna
go.
say,
Community
why'd you do some
service right there.
landscaping?
How about you?
Found something for the Boy Scouts.
Jennifer English is always
Okay,
Since those have been constructed, she's overseen that, so I'll check with her.
alright,
Yep.
thank you.
You're
That was the only email that I had.
Excellent. Now, if we don't have any other citizens concerns, do we have a motion to adjourn for this evening?
Are you done?
Sure.
Move. Second. Mr. Hancock. All those in favor of adjourning for this evening, reconvening next week with the idea that we have an executive session after next meeting, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, we are adjourned for this evening.
Tell ya. No more questions.